What's going on, Facebook family? I hope everybody is well. Come on in and invite somebody. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation tonight. I want to talk to you for a moment. I just want to talk about the benefits of rebuilding your life. Come on, let's talk about it. So, I was in, hey, bless y'all. How y'all doing? Y'all share this, invite someone in. So I was in the car today. I was in the car and I'm heading to church this morning. And I'm asking God, I'm talking to God. I'm like, God, what do you want me to, talk about tonight? What do you want me to talk about? What do you want me to, hey, Bishop, hey, Dad, how you doing? What do you want me to talk about? What do you want me to get on here about? And it's funny that Pastor's on, Bishop is on, because he actually helps with. He actually helped me get an understanding of kind of what I was going to talk about tonight. And in fact, earlier today while we were in church, really, man, just the Spirit of God came in, and we just felt the presence of restoration there. And as I was heading to church, the Lord already started talking to me about rebuilding and reconstructing your life. What that means, what are the benefits to it. And I kind of had to, glean from my own story about what I've gone through and what I've experienced in my 20s. Going through my 20s, what I've experienced, what I've gone through as pertains to rebuilding my own life, as it pertains to fixing my life, rebuilding it, rebranding it, becoming everything that God has called me, because it's a process, it's a journey. You always hear me say it, Rome was not built in a day, or Rome was not built in the night, and neither are you. You are on a process to becoming whatever it is that God has deemed or said that you're going to be. And so my job here is to help you understand that process and help you understand what it is that God has for you and where you're going, what you're supposed to be. And the reality is this: life, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, whether anybody literally wants to talk about it or not, life is always going to be full of changes. It's always going to be full of some type of transition. At some point in juncture in your life, you're going to experience some level of change, some level of transition, something that is going to mess with the foundation, or not even mess with the foundation, challenge the foundation that you stand upon, where you are in life. And no one desires to go through the darkness. No one desires to go through the dark places. No one desires to go through the circumstances in life that bring you, through great change. Nobody plans for that stuff. Nobody wants to go through those things. It is what it is. And when I went through a divorce at the age of 25 and 26. I went through a divorce. I got married at 25. I got married at 25, and by the time I was 26, I was divorced. So we didn't stay married long. We just didn't stay married long. And I did not want to go through that. I did not want to go through divorce. I didn't want to go through the pain of that. I didn't want to go through the act of disconnecting and separating. I didn't want to go through any of that. I didn't want to go through the heartache that was associated to it. I didn't want to go through the disconnecting, right? Because disconnecting is if you've ever gone through a breakup, if you've ever gone through a divorce, then you can attest to this, that honestly, the idea of disconnecting from somebody you've been connected with for so long is extremely painful. It can be intense. A lot of times you're over the person, but you're not over the connection that you had with them. True story, real facts. A lot of times you are over the person, but you're not over the bond that you had with them. And a lot of times the memories and the bond that you had with that person keeps replaying in your head. And that's what you're holding on to. That's what's got a hold of you so much. So when I went through the divorce, what I had to realize was it was the opportunity for me to hit the reset button. No, I didn't want to go through the divorce. No, I didn't want to go through that pain. No, I didn't want to go through that trauma. But it was the opportunity for me to hit the reset button. It was the opportunity for me to hit the reset button. And the thing about going through that season of my life, I'll be kind of candid with you guys. Going through that season of my life, everything in my life began to collapse. It's crazy. Everything in my life began to collapse. I had an IT contract that I was working with in Michigan, and that didn't get renewed for the next year. That didn't get renewed for the next year. Bless you, Pastor McKay. That didn't get renewed for the next year, so that messed with my finances. And then, of course, when my finances got messed with, everything else started messing with my material possessions. All that stuff just began to collapse. Started going through losing things, losing property, losing vehicles, things of that nature. Had to surrender vehicles, things like that. I was just going through total loss. And not only that, my family, my mother, my sisters, at that time, they were even going through transition as well. And what made it painful for me was I'm the eldest of my mother's children. I'm the eldest of five girls, I'm the eldest of. And so when my family, my sisters and my mother were going through transition, it made it painful because I could not help them the way that I wanted to because I was going through my own transition. And the best way I could help them was to get myself in a position where I could be a help to somebody. That was the best way that I could help them. So not only was I going through a painful situation, I was watching other people around me going through a painful situation. And when you're somebody that a lot of people lean on and a lot of people depend on sometimes, it puts you in a place where you're trying to make something happen, or you want to make something happen, and you feel arrested, you feel handcuffed because you can't get it done. You can't do what you need to do for everybody else. And I'll never even forget, I got a prophetic word that, let me know that my family was going to be all right. Though they depended on me a great deal, my family was going to be all right. But it was time for me at that point to go ahead and start rebuilding my life in Texas. And so what I did for myself was I journeyed. I moved from Michigan to Beaumont, Texas first. I lived a year in Beaumont, Texas. And I love Beaumont, but Beaumont was, for me, this is my truth. Beaumont was a little slower for me. It was a little slower for me. Here I come from the, Detroit, Metro Detroit area. And, I'm used to fast-paced living, this and that, go here, go there, I'm used to that. Beaumont was a little bit slower for me. So I had to make a move. And I knew God was calling me to Houston. I knew God was calling me to Houston. I knew He had work for me to do in Houston. I knew that Houston was going to be the place where God really blessed me. It was going to be the place where God really blessed me. So I moved to Texas. Doors were opening for my ministry. I literally was traveling. I want to say at that time my schedule was a lot more intense than where it is right now. But at that point in my juncture in my ministry, I was traveling literally, I want to say 4 weeks out of the month, three to 4 weeks out of a month, I was gone. I was literally gone. I was gone almost every week. And what my schedule consisted of at that time, my schedule consisted of me flying out, Bible study on Tuesday, because I was an assistant pastor, Bible study on Tuesday, flying out either Wednesday or Thursday, or heading on the road Wednesday or Thursday. And some of my schedule is still like this now, but heading out on a Wednesday or a Thursday and getting back maybe Saturday night or Sunday morning, early Sunday morning, so I could get to service, which started at 4 o'clock, and then have to take, rest. And that's if I didn't have to preach that morning, and then rest, and then go to take my off day, which was on a Monday, and then go back and do it all over again on a Tuesday. So I go, get out of here. Sorry, y'all, my dog is over here. But I literally had to go through all of that. I literally had to go through that transition. And so I'm preaching and I'm going through it, and it was great. It was an awesome time for me. But what I realized was I had not really stepped it fully into rebuilding my life. I'm gonna be honest, if I could just be transparent, I kind of was medicating myself through the act of preaching. I was medicating myself through the act of preaching. I was ignoring the pain. I was ignoring the stagnation in certain areas through the idea of, well, I'll just preach my way through it, and hopefully I'll come out break even. And that's stuff, nobody's gonna talk about and everything. But I was medicating myself through the act of preaching everywhere. And the problem with that is this. I was still stuck in a place of collapse and ruin. And it took for me, and this is my truth, it took for me one day to decide, you know what, I've had enough of this. Once the divorce was finalized, I was like, you know what, I have had enough of this. She's moved on with her life. I'm moving on with my life. I moved here to Texas. It is time for me to rebuild. And God really, he started dealing with my mind. It was like, it is time for me to rebuild. It's time for me to refocus. It's time for me to rebuild. It's time for me to get into a position where I can experience everything that he has for my life. And that's a lesson to some of you. For those that are going through breakups, for those that are going through divorces, those, that are disconnecting from long-term relationships, you have to decide in your mind, you have to decide that after everything has collapsed, after the bottom has fallen out, after everything is it's over, it's done, it's burned to the ground, you have to be the one to start saying enough is enough. I am going to pick up the pieces in my life, and I'm going to move on and move forward, and I'm going to rebuild my life. And when I rebuild my life, I'm going to rebuild it better than it was before. No one likes the darkness. No one likes the darkness. No one likes the pain of going through it. But sometimes God allows the pain to happen. God allows the experience to come, so He can literally transform the way your life looks and the dynamics surrounding your life. He has this for you here, but the only way for you to experience this over here is if he removes you and causes everything else to burn down and break down, so you can move away from that and move into what he has for you, all right? It was only then when my life collapsed. It was only then when I went through the divorce, started losing everything. It was only then that I was able to hit the reset button, and I was able to experience, watch this, a new wave of peace that I had not honestly experienced ever before. I had never experienced this type of peace. I had never experienced this type of perspective about my life before. It was a sense of peace that, hey, this is my destiny, this is my life, and I am going to forge it. I am going to move in the direction that God has for me, and I'm not going to let anybody or anything inhibit that. I was learning how to master becoming an individual. I was learning how to master becoming a purpose-driven person. And I was learning how to live my life not predicated upon the opinions of other people. I'll give you my truth. The reality for me was this. Prior to the age of 25, I really lived my life dictated by those that I either looked up to or were surrounded by. That's the truth. That's my truth. I lived my life somewhat dictated by the opinions and the people that either I looked up to or I was surrounded by. Not that I wasn't so much of a free thinker, because I still kind of did what I wanted to do, but I felt as if I needed the endorsement of the crowd. I felt like I needed the endorsement of the crowd. And when I really look back over my life, certain moves that I made and certain things that I did, that were very, whenever I went through a period of transition or whether I moved away from something, I look back over my life and I realized that God pulled me away from the crowd in those seasons so I can move into what he has for me without anybody questioning what I was doing, without anybody, saying, man, I don't know about that. I don't know if I would do that. Well, you ain't got to know about doing it. It's not for you. It's for me. There is a difference between, accountability. There's a difference between accountability and good counsel. And then there's another, there's a difference between good counsel and accountability is somebody just out and out projecting their fears, their fear of failure on you. There's a difference between the two. And I said all that to say, I was able at the age of 25, 26 to hit the reset button and begin to really partner with God and live my life the way that he wanted me to live it. But it only happened after everything in my life had collapsed. Y'all do me a favor. Y'all share this on Facebook and Periscope and invite somebody in for me. Because somebody needs to hear this. Somebody needs to hear this. All right. So here are 4 things, and I'm done. 4 things that happen as a benefit to you taking the time to just start rebuilding your life. After you've gone through ruin, after you've gone through the pain, after you've gone through the suffering, here are 4 things that happen. There are 4 benefits to rebuilding your life. Number 1, when I began to start rebuilding my life, I took time to re-examine myself. I took the time to re-examine myself. And watch this. I needed to re-examination. It is one of the most hardest things that a human being can do, because nobody likes to look at their faults. No one likes to look at their flaws. No one likes to look at what they've done wrong. We would all like to think, it's human nature, it's human proclivity, that we would all like to think that we do everything right 100% of the time. No one likes to have the spotlight shown on what they've done bad, or where they need to improve at. No one, even though constructive criticism, it is good for you, no one welcomes it all the time. No one just fully likes it all the time. It's not one of those things that you have to make yourself enjoy. It's an acquired taste. You have to make yourself enjoy constructive criticism. So what I did was I took the time to re-examine myself, because watch this. My marriage had failed. That was the reality. My marriage had failed. And marriage, it was 2 people involved. It was me and her. It was 2 people involved. So hopefully on her end, she took the time to re-examine herself, hopefully. But I know I had to take the time to re-examine myself as well. I needed to take the time to reevaluate and reflect on myself. I had to look myself in the mirror and ask myself the tough questions. What could you have done better? How could you have been a better husband? How could you have been, a better support system? What could you have done better, Jay? Because you didn't do everything right. What should you have not said? What should you have said? What should you have spoke up on? What should you have just let go? I had to ask myself these questions. And I did this for about maybe 2 months. I didn't talk about it. I didn't talk about it really with anybody, but I would do a lot of writing. And I would ask myself, I would really scrutinize and ask myself, what was going on in your mind during that season? Why were you doing this and that? What was going on? What was going on? Is that the best way that you could have handled that? All right. And not only, this was big for me too. Not only, and I'm trying to help y'all, but not only did I have to look at, what I could have done better, I had to really examine what I was bringing to the table. I had to really examine what I was bringing to the table and really ask myself, do I need to bring more? Do I need to bring, is what I'm bringing to the table enough? And what I mean by that, not so much as I'm valuable, to devalue myself or I'm not good enough as myself, but what I bring to, do I need to step my game up? Do I need to take things to the next level? What needs to happen in my life? What needs to happen with me? What more of my potential do I need to pull out and dig out to bring to the table? What do I need to do? And those are the questions that I had to ask myself. Am I doing enough? Am I tapping into all of who I am? Am I tapping into all of who I am? Am I tapping into, every resource that I have within myself? Am I doing enough? Am I am I all that I can be? Bishop today, he taught, he taught, and one of his lessons was, he said, one of his points was, it was self-actualization. Are you self-aware? Self-actualization. Are you aware of who you are, where you are, and what you bring to the table? What you're doing with your life? Are you aware of what's on the inside of you? Are you aware of what you got going on? Are you aware of your condition, the state that you're in? A lot of us don't take the time to go through our own self-surgery. A lot of us don't take the time to look ourselves in the mirror. We don't like it. It doesn't always feel good. We don't take the time to do it. But that is one of the biggest self-helps that you could ever do, is take the time to look at your own self in the mirror. Let me help you. Better you look at your flaws and try to fix them than everybody else. Yeah. Better if you look at your flaws and fix them than everybody else. Better you try it than everybody else. Y'all, excuse me. Better you try it. You try to fix them than everybody else. Because let me put it like this. Somebody once said this, and I believe it. You can lie to everybody else, but don't lie to yourself. You can lie to everybody else, but don't sit there and lie to yourself. To thy own self be true. It's an inside job. Nobody can do it for you. You got to be the one to start working on what it is that you need to work on. All right, I'm moving. Let me get off that. Number two. As I started to rebuild my life, I had gone through a season where I just really did a lot of self-examination. Really started, thinking about what Jeremy needed to do, what Jay needed to do, and I was able to. Not only there, I was able to go through the process of restoration. The process of restoration. And this is key, because this meant I had to partner with God. I had to partner with God and begin to work on restoring my life. Let me help you. Restoration doesn't just fall from the sky. I know you would like to believe that. I know when you go to church, folk around you, folk around you tell you, you scream 20 times and God's going to start to restore things, which to a degree, God he does start restoring things, but restoration takes work. When you have an old vehicle, when you have an old car, and that car, let's say you got a 1957 Chevrolet, or better yet, a 1957 Cadillac DeVille, and it needs to be restored. It's in bad condition, but it's a classic. It's a rare car. They don't make it anymore, and you want that car. You want that car to shine. You want it to be polished. You want it to be everything that it once was before, maybe even better. What do? You send it, you put in the work to send it through the process of restoration. You go get parts. You go get, you look for this, you go look for that and everything. And you start putting things together to restore that vehicle. Well, that's the same thing that happens in your life. When you go through the process of restoration, you partner with God and you say, all right, Lord, I know you have this for me here. So I'm going to position myself to get myself in a place where I can, when I'm ready, you'll release all that for me. You'll release everything that you have been waiting, that you have had laid up for me. And for me, I knew God wanted to restore finance. I knew God wanted to restore vehicles. I knew God wanted to restore, my living conditions. God wanted to restore a lot of things in my life, but I had to get myself in position. So what did I do? I did some practical things. I went out and I changed or rearranged my preaching schedule. I would preach on the weekends and I would work throughout the week. That's right. I would preach on the weekends and work throughout the week. 2016, I just really rebuilt my life. This is how I did it. I worked through the process of restoration. I got me a little tech job, and I would work that job Monday through Friday, and then Friday night I would be heading to go preach somewhere. And I would be tired. And I would come back, Sunday morning or Sunday night, and I would be getting ready to get into bed so I could get up and go to work next morning. And then some things got changed and my schedule got rearranged, and I was able to come in. At 12 o'clock and work a little later and everything, stuff like that. But it all worked out. But I said all that to say, I went through the process of restoration. Not only that, I put myself in a position, got myself in a vehicle, got myself a nice apartment, things like that, in a great side of town. In fact, I was when I moved to Houston. I lived in the medical center. I lived right by NRG in the medical center. And anybody who's been in Houston knows that that's a pretty decent area. Busy area. That's a pretty decent area. I was close to downtown. I was close to everything, Super Bowl, all that stuff. I began to start reworking my life. I began to start rebuilding my life. The point of that I was trying to say is I could have stayed in a position of defeat after my divorce. I could have stayed in a position of ruin after my divorce. But instead, I decided to say, God, I'm getting up from here. I get it. I made some mistakes too. I messed up along the way. But Lord, if you allow me to partner with you and you'll help me get in position, then I will go after everything that you have for me. I believe it was David in the Bible, when he was in Ziklag, when he got back from Ziklag, the Bible says that the Philistines had came and they had plundered everything in the village. They had taken all the men's wives and their kids and all their possessions. And David got his stuff taken too. And the Bible says that David said, he asked the Lord, he inquired of the Lord, because they got tough. The men were even about to kill David. And he said, Lord, shall I pursue this truth? In other words, shall I go after it? Can I go after this? Can I go, get what I lost? Can I go get what was stolen from me? Can I take it back? And the Bible says the Lord told him, pursue. Without fail, you shall recover all. And that was kind of like my mantra at that time, where I began to pursue everything that I had lost and had to leave in Michigan. I began to pursue. I began to go after it. And God began to bless me in those areas. And so the next thing is that I started, after everything had collapsed, after everything had burned down, after everything had collapsed, I had started to experience a rebirth. God began to rebirth things for me. He began to revive things for me. He began to revive my life. He began to rebirth things in my life. I was able to get up and experience the restoration power of God. All right. Number 3, and I'm moving. Not only did I recover, not only did I get, things restored to me that I had lost, not only that, I was able to tap into a new lease on my life. I was refreshed. I was refreshed. I felt free emotionally from the pain. I felt free from the burden of losing everything around me, from my life collapsing, from losing a marriage, things like that. I felt free from that. And not only that, I felt great about the direction that my life was heading in. Because honestly, like I said, this was the first time in my life that I had really decided that I was going to partner with God, not anybody else. I was going to partner with God to make my life work. This was one of the first times. And I was making my life work. I was moving it in the direction that God wanted to me. And the beautiful thing about this was I was feeling so refreshed because I didn't have to fight with people and their opinions that would have been draining me. I didn't have to fight with people and their opinions. I didn't have to fight with family members because all my family was in Michigan. I didn't have to fight with friends because most of my friends still lived in Michigan. I didn't have to fight with, I didn't have to fight with other church folk and everything because I pretty much stayed to myself. I preached and then came home, stayed to myself. I didn't have to fight with coworkers, all this stuff. I didn't have to fight with anybody. I was doing me. I was refreshed. I felt good. I was good, and I was able to work on different things. There were my challenges along the way, but I was able to work on different things. I was able to do this project. I was able to do that project. I was refreshed. Why? Because I didn't have an environment around me that was pulling on me, that was telling me, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. I didn't have people in my life that was draining me. As a matter of fact, I really started beginning to change my circle and surround myself with people that begin to add to me. I hope y'all sharing this. Invite someone in. I refreshed myself because I re-examined my life. I allowed God to restore it, and I changed up the whole entire environment. I became the one that was in charge of the environment. I became the one that was in charge of the flow that was going on in my life. I got the direction from God on what needed to be done, what needed to be set up, and I put things into play. And I did not allow people outside of my environment, outside of what was going on, outside of what God was telling me. I didn't necessarily allow people to enter into my life and just tell me, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. Or if I were you, you're not me. You're not me. So I don't need you to tell me that. I don't need you to tell me that. And not only that, what I did was too, now I'll tell you this, what I did was I submitted myself to wise counsel. I submitted myself to wise counsel. And before I made certain decisions, I submitted myself to that counsel. And before I made certain decisions, I ran this by them. I said, what do you think? Well, what is, this and that and everything. But I submitted myself to wise counsel. But as far as people, telling me just, this and that and everything, man, no. I'm rebuilding my life, man. I'm putting my life in position so I can experience everything that God has for me. I don't have time to quit. I just need to rebuild. It starts in the mind. The scripture says in Nehemiah that the people had a mind to work. They had a mind to rebuild. They had a mind to put in the work associated to rebuilding and restoring Israel. After what Israel had gone through, after the collapse of Israel, after Israel had fallen, the people had a mind to rebuild their civilization. They had a mind to rebuild their environment. It starts with you. And once they had a mind to rebuild their environment and things of that nature, they begin to experience a new rejuvenation. They begin to experience what it meant to feel refreshed. Everything in my life was new again. Everything in my life was new. Everything I was born, it's almost like everything was just new. Everything was new. Everything was renewed. Everything was refreshed. All right. And lastly, and this is the big one. I was able to, after going through that whole process, I was able to redefine myself. Somebody said it down here. Once you know your true identity, you're unstoppable. That's right. Once I tapped into this, who I was, it was also season for me. Once I got away from the noise, once I got away from all the opinions of people, I began to redefine myself. I'll never forget. I was streaming a pastors and leadership conference. It was going on here in Texas, and it's a well-known one. And the leader of that movement, they spoke and they said, "You and God, people don't define who you are. People don't define who you are, because when you allow people to define who you are, they will define you based off their estimation and their value of who you are. People do not define who you are. You and God determine who you are. You and God define who you are. Who you are. They define who you are. In the name of Jesus, I decree and declare that addiction is broken off your life. In Jesus' name, amen. But they, people define who you are. People don't define who you are. You and God define who you are. All right? You and God define who you are. And I will never forget when I heard those words. And when I heard them, it's almost like I got deliverance. I will never forget that day. I was in my living room. And it's almost like I got deliverance because I felt this freedom to just tap into who I was, and not just one aspect of who I was. Not just one aspect of who I was. For years, everybody just known me as, that's Prophet Smith. But I was more than just that. A lot of times, I'll be honest with you, that's why you don't see me with Prophet by my name. That's why you don't see that title by my name. Yeah, that's who I am and everything. That's what I do and stuff like that. But I'm more than just that. You are more. You are more than what meets the eye. You are more than what everybody says about you. You are too gifted to be marginalized by the opinions and the rhetoric of the people around you. You're more than that. You're more than what meets the eye. And what you have to do is you have to decide, I'm no longer going to live my life off the opinions of other people, but I'm going in the environment. But what I am going to do is I'm going to live up to and live out everything that God has placed on the inside of me. He took potential and put it on the inside of me. He said, when I'm putting this potential into you, and when you tap into this potential, you're going to be able to do this over here for these people. You're going to be this over there for them. You're going to be this over there for her. You're going to be this over here for him. You're going to be this right here. You're going to be that right there. I'm making you a multi-dimensional person. I'm making you a multifaceted person. And when you allow yourself to live off the opinions of people, what you are saying is, I want the crowd to dictate my destiny. I want the crowd to dictate my life. I want the crowd to dictate my purpose. I want the crowd to dictate the flow of my life. And the thing about when the crowd dictates the flow of your life, the crowd will put you up one day, and when they feel like you're not doing something that they want you to do, they will take you down the next. The crowd, as long as Jesus was not saying he was the Son of God, the crowd loved him. But the moment he was saying that he was God was the same moment that they decided that it was blasphemy. Let's put him on the cross. The crowd can be dangerous. Listening to the crowd, pleading to please the crowd can be dangerous. It is dangerous for you. It's detrimental to you. It kills you. It stops you from being all that you are. All right? It stops you from being all that you are. I preached a message one time, I think it was last year. It's called There Is Fire. I was dealing with a gifting series at my church. I was still pastoring my church, and I was dealing with a gifting series, and I was dealing with it, and I said, there's fire. And I was like, you do not have time in your life to live your life where you are marginalized by society and the opinions of people, watch this, that don't know you privately, but only see your gifting displayed publicly. You don't have time to be marginalized by people who don't know you privately and have only seen your gifting displayed publicly. In other words, they only know what they see. They only know what they see. They only know what you have presented to them. And if you keep allowing them to demand you to present one facet of who you are, you will be stuck in that image. You will be stuck in that light. Actors, I was telling them this, childhood actors, it's hard to be a childhood actor in Hollywood because once you do a role so well, you get typecasted. And what happens when you get typecasted is it inhibits you, it stops you from being able to explore other roles that bring out that speak to your personality, that speak to your abilities and the full extent of you being able to act. It stops you from experiencing other roles because people only want to see you play the type of roles that you have been known to play. People only want to see you do one thing. That's why you cannot allow people to define who you are. That's why you cannot allow people to limit you. Limitations, that's right. Limit you with their mind. You and God have to redefine who you are. And so in that season of my life, what I did was I went through a period where I just allowed God to redefine me. I started working on things. I started working on books. I started working on things. I actually started covering my first church in 2016. I started planting in 2017. I started to really work this thing. I started to tap into different things. I didn't want to just be known for one thing. I even progressed. I started trying to, I started working on changing my delivery when I preached. Because I came out of a Pentecostal background, and Pentecostal background, you ain't preaching if you ain't, and screaming and everything. You're not preaching if you're not doing that. Folk ain't gonna get with you. But I had to learn that it's okay not to please the crowd. I'm not concerned about the crowd as long as I'm being effective. I'm not concerned about what the crowd wants as long as I'm being effective. And so what happened was I started making a transition in my mind and in my preaching as well. I went from, I would even say it, I went from pleasing the crowd, fighting and to please the crowd in my preaching, to striving to be more effective in my preaching. So I would slow down, take my time and teach more, get more comfortable with teaching, get more comfortable with talking. I was preaching in Detroit, Michigan just the other week, and I'll never forget, they gave me, I asked them, give me a headset. You guys got a headset? I got a headset, and I took the headset and I began to teach, just having a conversation like I'm doing with you all right now. I began to teach. Now, let me say this, 3-4 years ago, maybe 2014, you couldn't have paid me. I would have probably tried. I like to do it deep down, but you couldn't have paid me necessarily to pick up a headset and try to teach like that, because it was something that I was not ready to tap into. I didn't want to tap into because the crowd expected one thing from me, and I was ready to deliver on that. But what I've realized over the years is I'm multidimensional. And if I'm multi-dimensional, that's why I say I'm just not just a prophet. I'm not just an apostle, things like that. I'm a teacher as well. I teach. And I don't just teach about things in the church. I teach about life. I teach about things. I'm multi-dimensional. And you have to get to the same place. You have to be comfortable with, instead of being one-dimensional, you have to be multi-dimensional. You have to be multi-dimensional. One of the things that makes, I'm still a Jordan fan to the day I die, but I will say this. One thing that makes LeBron James a great player is that he's multi-dimensional in his basketball IQ and game. He can play multiple positions and dominate. And everybody can say that. He can play multiple positions and dominate. I believe personally, I think he's played all 5 positions on the floor before. He can do it and dominate. All right? I have to say, you want to dominate. You want to be multidimensional. You want to be everything that God has called you to be. You want to rebuild your life. And when you rebuild your life, you're going to rebuild it better than before. So get up from the divorce, get up from the breakup. You've been there too long. You like Samuel. You've been crying over this same person for too long. Get up. God has moved on from it, and now it's time for you to get up, dust yourself off. It was an error, it was a mistake, but now you have the opportunity to rebuild your life. Listen, I'm done. I'm glad this blessed y'all. I hope it blessed y'all. I'm glad. Listen, July 20th through the 22nd, I need everybody. Visit us in Houston, Texas. Visit us in Houston, Texas. We got millennials. We got millennials. Some of everybody, actually, not just millennials. We've got some of everybody joining us at New Home Family Worship Center, July 20th through the 22nd for Mask Off. That's right, it's Mask Off. That is our young adults identity conference, We are so excited. You've been hearing us talk more about identity, things like that. You've been hearing us on the couch talk as well, about things that millennials go through, stuff like that. I need you all to be there. You can register at mask-off.com at eventbrite.com. You can go to Eventbrite and go there, register. Registration is free. It's free. We want everybody to be there. We got people coming up. We got an awesome lineup. We've got Pastor Paul Kane. We've got Pastor Phil Suber from the Lighthouse here in Houston. We've got none other than Bishop R.C. Blakes himself. He's going to be doing some teaching with us. Yours truly is going to be speaking on that Sunday, along with Prophetess Risha Williams. It's just going to be an awesome time, man. And we got musical guests as well. We've got all the way from New Orleans, Louisiana. That's right, Noya's in the house. We've got them coming, Dominic Davis and Corey Ricks. We've got them coming. They are going to be there. So I want you guys to join us for Mask Off. Make sure you register. If you're on Facebook, I have provided the link for you. All you got to do is click on it and get registered. Registration is free. Listen, family, I love you all. And I want you, this video will be on YouTube. Did y'all see my last video? Go visit YouTube. Visit me on YouTube. It's JL Smith. When you go to YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Visit me on social media. All of you, you can also email me. You can visit my website. It's www.jlsmithglobal.com. Visit me on my website. Somebody on Periscope, if y'all can put that on screen. Somebody on Facebook, if you could put that on screen for as well. But it's www.jlsmithglobal. Visit me there. Write me. I love for your prayer requests. I love for you to talk to me. I write back. I will respond to you. Send me an email. I'm an open book. If you got questions about life, relationships, the prophetic, feel free to email me. I will talk to you. I will respond back to you. If you don't catch me there, you can always catch me on Facebook. I have a public figure page. It's JL Smith. Visit me, man. Talk to me. I'm an open book. I will talk back to you. I will respond. My schedule gets busy, but I will take time to speak to you. But those of you that are on Periscope and those of you that are on Facebook, visit me on YouTube. Let's get those numbers up. I want to get those numbers up. I want to be able to come to you and you guys be able to experience that as well. Visit me on YouTube. Go ahead, hit the subscribe button, and I believe God's going to bless your life. Listen, I got to get out of here. I got a busy week ahead of me. I've been putting up baby beds and all types of stuff this past week and just been doing a lot of traveling. So I'm excited, but I getting prepared. I got a little one on the way, so I'm getting prepared for that. So, but you all stay connected with me. Visit me again. Listen, I love you all, and I will talk to you all soon. God bless you, and I'll see you again. This has been another video session, another relationship and life session with JL Smith. God bless you. I love you.